The Vikings traveled the world in boats and raided villages and tombs for money and other goods they could use to their advantage. By the end of the 9th century, the Vikings had come to Scotland to raid, settle, and intermarry into the population.
In the 19th century, it was noticed that there was a mutation where hands would spasm and deform and become almost unusable. It was traced back through almost everyone's lineage to northern European countries, more specifically Scotland, at the end of the 9th century. Baron G. Dupuytren was the one who made this discovery. Therefore, the disease was named Dupuytren's disease after him. The disease is also called the Viking disease because of its lineage.
Symptoms of the mutation include hand spasms, the inward curling of the pinky or ring finger, and one or more lumps or nodules under the skin of the hand by the pinky and ring fingers. Fascia, the connective tissue that envelops the muscles, bones, and joints, which supports the body structure, is a part of the cardiovascular, respiratory, gastrointestinal, musculoskeletal, and neurological systems. Dupuytren's is the palmar or hand fascia hardening or going through fibrosis. The connective tissue in the hand are attacked by myofibroblasts, which are large cells with ruffled membranes and highly active endoplasmic reticulum that are not part of the normal tissue. The myofibroblasts deposit excess collagen and proteins on the tissue after an injury. Dupuytren's is most commonly displayed in men over the age of 40. In women, it is less severe and much less common to be displayed. Dupuytren's disease is also much more likely in elderly people, people of Scandinavian or Northern European background, people with a family history of the disease, or people with a history of seizures.
Dupuytren's is passed down through recessive gene, which explains why it's known to skip a generation. However, Dupuytren's disease is unique because if parents give birth to a child with 2 recessive genes for Dupuytren's, they won't show any symptoms of this disease until it's triggered by trauma to the hand.
For example, my maternal great-grandfather had Dupuytren's and also displayed the symptoms of the disease. When he married my great-grandmother, they had 4 children. My uncle, who is a kinesiologist, my grandmother, who is an HR specialist, my aunt, who is an IT consultant, and my uncle, who is an aero engineer. Of the 4 of them, there were 5 grandchildren. My cousin Brienne, who is a technical writer, my cousin Jamie, who is a translator, my mother, who is a real estate agent, my cousin Elena, who is a veterinarian, and my other cousin Coleman, who is a geologist. And then of the 5 of them, there are currently 3 great-grandchildren. My cousin Griffin, my cousin Alice, and myself. Now, if you look back at the people in this geological timeline, my great-grandfather was a carrier, but also displayed symptoms of the disease. My grandmother, we don't know if she had Dupuytren's in the recessive gene, and we don't know if she had no contact whatsoever. Of their children, all of whom are carriers, none of them used their hands in a way that could cause the trauma that would cause Dupuytren's. And then of their children, you see the same thing as well. All of them are carriers, however, none of them use their hands in a way that could cause the trauma. Now, if my great-grandmother was a carrier of Dupuytren's, every time they had a child, there was a 50% chance of that child having both recessive genes of Dupuytren's. And there was also a 50% chance of no possible symptoms. However, 100% of their children will be carriers, as shown, and of the 50% that have Dupuytren's, they will still need the trauma which would activate the symptoms of Dupuytren's. If my great-grandmother was not a carrier, all of the children would be carriers, however, they would not have no risk of actually getting the disease because of the trauma. They would just pass it on then for it to their children.
With every genetic disorder, there is the possibility that over time it may become less common. and even not exist. However, with Dupuytren's, this is very unlikely to happen because this disease is so late to show its symptoms. Someone who might not even know that they have it develops symptoms after they've had children and after those genes have been carried on. On a basic biological level, partners for producing offspring are chosen based on their genes, for healthy genes that won't produce any mutations or deformities. As Dupuytren's is a late onset disorder, reproduction already occurs by the time someone starts showing symptoms. This ensures that the genetic disorder is passed on. However, the activation of the disease will become more rare and more hard to come by as technologies advance and evolutionize to help with simple human jobs such as lifting something or catching something, which could cause damage to them.